I spotted Jennifer's pregnant belly across the crowded Portland Saturday market on May 6, 2023, and in the 3 seconds it took for our eyes to meet, my entire understanding of the last 16 months collapsed into a single, devastating calculation. If she was 7 or 8 months along right now, visibly showing in that loose sundress with Derek Patterson's hand protectively on her lower back, then she'd been 3 or 4 months pregnant when we signed our divorce papers in Judge Morrison's chambers last November. She'd never had a miscarriage. She'd lied about everything. My name is Marcus Thompson. I'm 34 years old, a civil engineer who specializes in bridge construction. Ironically, I build things designed to hold weight and withstand stress. For 12 years, I thought I'd built something equally solid with Jennifer. We met at Portland State University when we were 22, married at 27, and by early 2022, we were living in a beautiful craftsman house in the Hawthorne district, talking about starting a family. I made $145,000 a year designing infrastructure projects across the Pacific Northwest. Jennifer worked in marketing at Confluence Creative, earning about $72,000. Together, we'd accumulated $1.4 million in assets, our home, retirement accounts, investments. We weren't wealthy, but we were comfortable, stable, building towards something. Then on March 14, 2022, Jennifer told me she was pregnant. I remember exactly where I was standing when she said it. In our kitchen, sunlight streaming through the window over the sink, catching the tears in her eyes. Happy tears, I thought. I pulled her into my arms, and for maybe 10 perfect seconds, I felt complete. We were going to be parents. Everything we'd worked toward was finally happening. 2 weeks later, on March 28th, she told me she'd miscarried. I came home from a site inspection in Astoria to find her curled up on our bed, sobbing so hard her whole body shook. She could barely get the words out. 8 weeks along, she said. She'd started bleeding that morning. Called her doctor. It was over. Our baby was gone before I'd even processed that we were having one. I held her while she cried. I took 3 days off work. I researched miscarriage, learned that it happens in 15 to 20% of known pregnancies, that it wasn't anyone's fault, that we could try again. I scheduled grief counseling for both of us, 8 sessions with Dr. Patricia Reeves on Belmont Street. Jennifer went to 3 before saying it was too painful to keep reliving it. I kept going for 6 months, trying to process a loss that felt both enormous and somehow abstract. How do you mourn someone you never met? Looking back now, I can see how perfectly she used my grief against me. In April and May, Jennifer started pulling away. She stopped wanting to talk about the miscarriage, which Dr. Reeves said was normal. Everyone processed loss differently. She picked up extra projects at work, staying late more often. She seemed distant during dinner, scrolling through her phone, giving one-word answers. When I suggested a weekend trip to the coast, something to help us reconnect, she said she wasn't ready. The miscarriage had changed something in her, she said. She needed space to figure out who she was outside of our plans. I gave her space. I thought I was being supportive. In June, Derek Patterson started showing up more in her stories. Derek and I grabbed lunch after the client meeting. Derek thinks we should pivot the campaign strategy. Derek's going through a tough breakup, so we got drinks to talk through it. I'd met Derek once at a company holiday party. Tall, athletic, worked in graphic design at Confluence. Jennifer always said he was just a friend, and I never questioned it. Why would I? We'd been together for 12 years. We were married. We just lost a child together. On August 3, 2022, Jennifer asked for a divorce. She sat me down in our living room on a Thursday evening, hands folded in her lap, and told me she couldn't do this anymore. The miscarriage had shown her that we weren't as compatible as she'd thought. She needed to heal, to find herself, to move forward without the constant reminder of what we'd lost. She was calm, almost clinical. She'd already contacted a lawyer, Andrea Hoffman at Berkshire Family Law. She wanted to keep things amicable, split everything fairly, and move on with minimal pain. I was devastated, but I couldn't fight her. How could I force someone to stay married when they were still grieving? If she needed to close this chapter to heal, wasn't that her right? The divorce proceedings took 3 months. Jennifer refused to meet in person, citing PTSD from the miscarriage. She said being in the same room with me triggered panic attacks. Everything went through our attorneys. Andrea Hoffman represented Jennifer. I hired Robert Caldwell from Morrison Associates. We divided our $1.4 million in assets down the middle, $700,000 each. The house sold for $640,000 in October. Our retirement accounts got split. Our savings, investments, everything. Halved with mathematical precision. I signed the final papers on November 18, 2022, in Judge Alice Morrison's chambers at Multnomah County Courthouse. Jennifer wasn't there. Andrea Hoffman said she was too emotionally fragile to attend. I signed a loan, walked out into the November rain, and drove to my new apartment in Northwest Portland, a one-bedroom rental on Lovejoy Street that cost $1,850 a month and felt completely hollow. For the next 6 months, I tried to rebuild. I threw myself into work, taking on a major project designing a pedestrian bridge over the Willamette River. I kept seeing Dr. Reeves, processing not just the miscarriage now, but the divorce, the loss of everything I built. My parents, Diane and Robert Thompson, both 62, retired and living in Eugene, checked on me constantly. My sister Kate drove up from Salem twice a month to make sure I was eating real food. Friends from college tried to get me back into dating, but I couldn't imagine starting over. How do you trust anyone after losing both your child and your marriage in the same year? I later learned that during those 6 months, Jennifer gave birth to my daughter, moved into a townhouse in Southeast Portland with Derek Patterson, and began building a life that should have included me. But on May 6, 2023, standing at the Portland Saturday Market with a breakfast burrito in my hand, all I knew was that the woman I'd grieved for, the woman I'd let go because I thought she needed to heal, was visibly pregnant with someone else's child. She was standing near the flower vendor stalls, maybe 40 feet away. Her hand rested on her belly in that unconscious way pregnant women do. Derek was beside her, laughing at something, his arm around her shoulders. She wore a loose yellow sundress and sandals, her hair longer than I remembered, pulled back in a ponytail. She looked happy, radiant even, and then she saw me. The color drained from her face so fast I thought she might faint. Her hand flew from her belly to Derek's arm, gripping it hard enough that he turned to look at her with concern. For maybe 3 seconds, we just stared at each other across the crowd. And in those 3 seconds, I watched her expression cycle through shock, fear, and something that looked almost like anger before she spun around and pulled Derek in the opposite direction. They disappeared into the crowd near the artisan bread stalls. I stood there, burrito forgotten, my brain working through the math with the methodical precision I usually reserved for load-bearing calculations. If Jennifer was 7 months pregnant now, in early May, she'd gotten pregnant in October 2022. No. Wait. If she was 8 months pregnant, that put conception around September 2022. We filed for divorce in August, finalized in November. If she was showing this much, this clearly, she'd been at least 3 or 4 months along during our divorce proceedings. The miscarriage she'd told me about was in late March 2022, but if she was pregnant now, visibly far along, and we'd been divorced for 6 months, my hand started shaking. The burrito hit the ground. She'd never had a miscarriage. She'd been pregnant this entire time. Through the divorce, through the careful division of assets, through every single document I'd signed, believing I was honoring her need to heal from our shared loss. She'd hidden my child through baggy clothes and winter layers and remote meetings. She'd conducted our entire divorce through lawyers specifically so I wouldn't see her body changing. She'd stolen our baby and my money, and 7 months, no more than that, she'd stolen the entire pregnancy, and given it all to Derek Patterson. I pulled out my phone with shaking hands and called my sister. "Kate," I said when she answered. My voice sounded strange, distant. "I need you to tell me I'm not crazy." "Marcus, what's wrong?" "I just saw Jennifer. She's pregnant. Very pregnant." Silence on the other end. Then, "What?" "We got divorced 6 months ago." "Kate, if she's as far along as she looks, she was pregnant during the divorce. The miscarriage, she lied about the miscarriage. She lied about everything." I heard Kate take a sharp breath. "Where are you?" "Saturday Market." "Stay there. I'm calling Robert Caldwell. Don't do anything until you hear from him. I don't remember the next hour clearly. I sat on a bench near the Burnside Bridge, watching the Willamette River flow past, my mind spinning through 16 months of carefully constructed lies. Every moment of grief I'd felt over the miscarriage, she'd been pregnant the entire time. Every therapy session where I'd processed our loss, she'd been planning to steal my child. Every document I'd signed, believing I was setting her free to heal, she'd been manipulating me out of $500,000 and full custody of a baby I didn't even know existed. My phone rang. Robert Caldwell, my divorce attorney. Marcus, Kate just called me. Tell me exactly what you saw. I described it. Jennifer's belly, the timeline, Derek Patterson, the look on her face when she saw me. Robert was quiet for a long moment. If what you're saying is accurate, we're looking at fraud. Massive, systematic fraud. Marcus, I need to bring someone else into this, a private investigator. This is going to get complicated, and we need documentation of everything. Do it, I said. I want to know everything. When she got pregnant, when the baby was born, everything she took from me. I'll make some calls. Don't contact Jennifer directly. Don't post about this anywhere. Let me handle this properly. The next person Robert brought in was Sarah Chen, a private investigator who specialized in family law cases. I met her the following Monday, May 9th, in Robert's office downtown, a corner suite with a view of Mount Hood that I barely registered. Sarah was in her 40s, compact and intense, with the kind of sharp eyes that seemed to catalog every detail. She had a leather portfolio open on the conference table, already taking notes. Mr. Thompson, she said, I've done preliminary background work based on what Robert shared. Before we go further, I need to establish timeline certainty. When exactly did Jennifer tell you about the miscarriage? March 28th, 2022. And she said she was 8 weeks along? Yes. Which would put conception around early February. You were together then, obviously. I nodded. When did she file for divorce? August 3rd, 2022. And finalized November 18th, 2022. Sarah made notes. When did you last see Jennifer in person? I had to think about that. July. Maybe July 20th. We met at a coffee shop in Selwood to discuss selling the house. She wore a really oversized hoodie even though it was summer. I remember thinking it seemed weird, but she said the air conditioning was too cold. Sarah and Robert exchanged a glance. If she was pregnant with a baby conceived in February, Sarah said carefully, she would have been about 5 months along in July, definitely showing. An oversized hoodie would hide it, especially if she was strategic about positioning. The room tilted slightly. 5 months pregnant, sitting across from me at a coffee shop discussing our divorce, and I'd noticed nothing. Here's what I'm going to do, Sarah continued. I'll start with surveillance, confirm the pregnancy, and get a delivery timeline. I'll pull social media, particularly any private or archived posts. I'll check property records to see where she's living and with whom. With Robert's help, we'll file for emergency discovery on medical records. If we can prove she was pregnant during the divorce, we can make a case for fraud. We'll also need a court-ordered paternity test once we confirm the child's birth. How long will this take? I asked. 2 to 3 weeks for the basics, longer if we need to dig deeper. Mr. Thompson, I have to ask, are you prepared for what we might find? If your theory is correct, this isn't just a lie. It's a systematic, premeditated deception that involves identity fraud, financial fraud, and custodial interference. The emotional impact. I've already lost 16 months, I interrupted. I've already grieved a child who might be alive. Whatever we find, it can't be worse than not knowing. Sarah nodded slowly. Then let's get to work. Over the next 3 weeks, Sarah Chen became the most important person in my life. She called every few days with updates, each one more devastating than the last. May 12th, I confirmed Jennifer's living at 1847 SC Hawthorne Boulevard, Unit 3B. Derek Patterson is on the lease. I have photos of them entering and exiting together. No sign of a baby yet, but I'm monitoring. May 16th. I pulled Jennifer's employment records from Confluence Creative. She took FMLA leave starting May 28, 2023, for medical reasons. That's 3 weeks ago. Marcus, if she took maternity leave 3 weeks ago, she likely gave birth in mid to late May, which backs up your timeline. May 19. I got into Jennifer's Instagram through a secondary account. She has a private close friend story with 23 people on it. I can't see the content yet, but I'm working on it. Her public profile shows nothing about a pregnancy or baby. May 23rd. Marcus, we got the close friends content. 23 posts spanning March 2022 through April 2023. Pregnancy announcement, ultrasounds, maternity photos. She documented everything, just not where you could see it. I'm sending Robert the full file now. I looked through those photos in Robert's office with hands that wouldn't stop shaking. Jennifer at 12 weeks, glowing, Derek kissing her cheek. Jennifer at 20 weeks, cradling her belly, Derek's hand over hers. Jennifer at 30 weeks in a maternity shoot at Laurelhurst Park, wearing a flowing white dress, looking ethereal and happy. Every single photo showed the pregnancy I'd been told never existed. The captions were worse. March 15th, 2022, our little secret. May 2nd, 2022, halfway there, can't wait to start our real family. August 30th, 2022, almost free, just a few more months. November 20th, 2022, divorce finalized today, new chapter starts now. That one was posted 2 days after I'd signed our divorce papers. Jesus, Robert said softly, reading over my shoulder. She celebrated. Sarah pulled up another file on her laptop, bank records. Jennifer has been paying Derek's rent since April 2022, $2,400 a month to a landlord named Harrison Properties. That's about when the affair likely became serious. The timing suggests she got pregnant, realized it was yours, and decided to build a new life with Derek using your money to fund it. Can we get medical records? I asked. We'll need a court order, which means filing a motion. But Marcus, there's something else. Sarah pulled up what looked like a text message transcript. Through digital forensics, completely legal, obtained through discovery, we recovered deleted messages from Jennifer's iCloud backup. There are 847 messages between Jennifer and Derek from March 2022 through November 2022. 847? They discussed everything. The plan to hide the pregnancy, the plan to get through the divorce without you knowing, the plan to use your share of the assets to set up their new life. Marcus, on August 14, 2022, 11 days after she filed for divorce, Jennifer sent this message to Derek. She turned the laptop toward me. The message read, "He has no idea. Dr. Mendoza says everything looks perfect. Due date June 12th. We'll be free with the baby in a few months. His engineering salary set us up perfectly. Just need to keep hiding it through November, and we're home free." He actually thanked me yesterday for being so strong through our loss. I almost laughed. I read it 3 times before the words fully penetrated. She'd called me clueless. She'd mocked my grief. She'd calculated exactly how much money she could extract and called my salary a setup fund. "There's more," Sarah said quietly. Derek responded, "You're brilliant, babe. He'll never figure it out. By the time he could, you'll have full custody and we'll be a family." He signed away his rights without even knowing. I stood up so fast my chair rolled backwards and hit the wall. I walked to the window, pressed my forehead against the cool glass, and tried to breathe. "Marcus," Robert said carefully, "we have enough for a fraud case. But I need to know, do you want to pursue criminal charges? Because this isn't just civil fraud. This is custodial interference, identity fraud, potentially perjury if she made false statements in divorce proceedings. We could be looking at jail time for Jennifer." I turned around. "I want full custody. I want every dollar back. And I want her to understand that you don't steal someone's child." Robert nodded slowly. "Then we need a paternity test first. Sarah, how do we confirm the child exists and get a court order?" "The FMLA records show she gave birth. I can get hospital records through discovery. Once we have proof of birth, we file for emergency paternity testing. If it comes back as Marcus's, which I believe it will, we file for emergency custody and start the fraud proceedings." It took another week to get the court order. On June 2nd, 2023, I received confirmation that Jennifer had given birth to a daughter, Lily Jennifer Patterson, Derek's last name. On June 8th, 2023, at Legacy Good Samaritan Hospital. Weight, 7 pounds, 3 ounces. Length, 19 inches. Healthy in all respects. I had a daughter. She was 3 weeks old and I'd never seen her. The court-ordered paternity test happened on June 7th. A technician came to Jennifer's apartment with a police escort. According to Sarah, who was there to document everything, Jennifer answered the door in sweatpants and a t-shirt with spit up on the shoulder. Derek stood behind her, holding a tiny bundle. Jennifer said nothing, just let the technician swab the baby's cheek while tears ran down her face. The police officer handed her the court order, and Sarah took photographs of everything. The results came back on June 12. 99.97% probability that I was Lily's biological father. I sat in my apartment on Lovejoy Street, staring at that percentage, and tried to process what it meant. I had a daughter who was 4 weeks old, a daughter whose first month of life had been stolen from me, a daughter who was being raised by the man my ex-wife had cheated with, in a home purchased with money she'd fraudulently obtained through our divorce, a daughter who didn't know I existed. Robert filed emergency motions that same day. Motion for custody. Motion to recover fraudulently obtained assets. Motion for court-ordered investigation of Jennifer's financial records. We also filed a criminal complaint with the Multnomah County District Attorney's Office, outlining the fraud, custodial interference, and perjury. On June 19, 2023, I met Lily for the first time. It was a supervised visit ordered by the court, held at a neutral location, a family services building on S.E. Morrison. Jennifer and Derek were required to bring her. I arrived 30 minutes early and sat in a small room with pale yellow walls, plastic toys in one corner, and a two-way mirror on one wall where a court-appointed supervisor could watch. When the door opened and Jennifer walked in carrying a car seat, everything else disappeared. She was so small. Lily was wearing a white onesie with tiny yellow ducks on it, a pink headband that was slightly too big, and she was sleeping, her miniature fists curled near her face. She had a tuft of dark hair, olive-toned skin like mine, and when Jennifer set the car seat on the table between us, I could see the delicate rise and fall of her chest. My daughter. You have 30 minutes, the supervisor said. Mother stays in the room per court order. Jennifer sat in the corner, arms crossed, jaw tight. Derek wasn't allowed in. It was just me, Jennifer, the supervisor, and this impossibly small person who was mine. I unbuckled Lily carefully, terrified I'd do it wrong, and lifted her out. She weighed almost nothing. Her head fit in my palm. She made a small sound, something between a sigh and a coo, and her eyes fluttered open, deep blue, unfocused, looking somewhere past my face. "Hi, Lily," I whispered. "I'm your dad." She yawned. Her tiny hand wrapped around my index finger reflexively, and something in my chest broke open. All the grief, all the rage, all the months of being lied to, it didn't disappear, but it got shoved aside by something bigger. I was holding my daughter. She was real and alive and perfect. I looked up at Jennifer. She was crying silently in the corner, mascara running down her face. "Did you name her after my grandmother?" I asked. Because my grandmother's name had been Lillian, and Jennifer had known her, had sat through Sunday dinners at my parents' house in Eugene, and heard stories about Grandma Lily's garden, her laugh, her fierce love for family. Jennifer nodded, barely. "You stole 16 months from me," I said quietly so Lily wouldn't hear anger in my voice. "The whole pregnancy. Her birth. Her first month. You stole all of it, Jennifer. And you used her, you used our daughter to commit fraud." "I panicked," Jennifer whispered. "When I found out I was pregnant, I was already involved with Derek, and I didn't know how to. I made mistakes, Marcus. I made so many mistakes." "You made choices," I corrected. "Calculated, systematic choices. You faked a miscarriage. You hid for 9 months. You celebrated when our divorce finalized. You called me a checkbook. Those weren't panic decisions. Those were planned." "I'm sorry," she said, and I couldn't tell if she meant it. I looked back down at Lily, who was starting to fuss, her face scrunching up in preparation for crying. I lifted her to my shoulder and patted her back the way I'd seen my sister do with her kids, and miraculously, she settled. "I'm not giving her up," I said. "I don't care what you do, who you run to, how you try to spin this. She's my daughter, and I'm going to be her father. You can't steal that from me anymore." The trial started on September 11, 2023, in Multnomah County Circuit Court before Judge Patricia Valdez. The state prosecuted the criminal charges: custodial interference in the second degree, fraud, and perjury. I filed separate civil suits for return of fraudulently obtained assets and emotional distress. Derek Patterson was named in civil charges for alienation of affection and conspiracy to commit fraud. The courthouse on Subway 4th Avenue was packed every day. The case had gotten media attention. The Oregonian ran a story headlined, "Portland Man Discovers Ex-Wife Hid His Child Through Divorce," and local news crews set up outside. People cared about this story because it touched something primal, the fear that someone could steal your child and make you believe they never existed. The prosecution's case was methodical and devastating. Day 1. Opening statements. The prosecutor, Elena Rodriguez, outlined the timeline with precision. Jennifer Thompson didn't just lie to her husband. She orchestrated a 16-month fraud that involved faking a miscarriage, hiding a pregnancy, manipulating divorce proceedings, and stealing both custody and $700,000 from the biological father. This wasn't a mistake. This was a crime. Day 3. The text messages. When Elena projected that August 14th message onto the courtroom screen, "His engineering salary set us up perfectly," I heard gasps from the gallery. Jennifer's attorney, a tired-looking man named Paul Reeves, objected repeatedly, but Judge Valdez allowed the evidence. All 847 messages were entered into record. Day 5. Medical testimony. Dr. Lisa Mendoza, Jennifer's OB/GYN, testified that Jennifer had continuous prenatal care from March 2022 through June 2023. No miscarriage, no abortion, just a healthy, planned pregnancy where the mother specifically requested all communications go to her cell phone only, not to any shared household address. "Did Miss Thompson ever mention the father?" Elena asked. "She said the father wasn't involved," Dr. Mendoza said, "that it was a wanted pregnancy but a complicated situation." "Did she ever mention she was married during the first 6 months of prenatal care?" "No." "Did she ever mention she was going through a divorce during the second and third trimesters?" "No." Day 7. Jennifer's sister testified. Kate Morrison, no relation to Judge Morrison, was Jennifer's younger sister by 3 years. She'd been on Jennifer's close friend's Instagram. She'd known about the pregnancy, and she'd heard Jennifer brag about the plan. "My sister called Marcus her checkbook," Kate said, her voice shaking. "In June 2022, we were having wine on her patio, and she told me she'd gotten pregnant by mistake but realized it was actually perfect timing. She said Marcus made good money, they had solid assets, and if she could just get through the divorce without him knowing about the baby, she'd walk away with enough to start fresh with Derek." "Did you try to stop her?" Elena asked. "I told her it was wrong. I said Marcus deserved to know. She told me to mind my own business, that men like Marcus always landed on their feet, that she was finally choosing herself." Kate looked at me from the witness stand. "I'm so sorry, Marcus. I should have told you." Jennifer's defense crumbled over the next week. Paul Reeves tried to argue emotional distress, panic, fear of conflict, all the standard defenses. But he couldn't explain the text messages. He couldn't explain the close friends' Instagram posts documenting every milestone. He couldn't explain why Jennifer paid Derek's rent with marital funds starting 2 months after conception. He couldn't explain the celebration post on November 20th. Derek took the stand on day 12 and claimed ignorance. "I thought the baby was mine," he said. "Jennifer told me she'd gotten pregnant after her separation from Marcus." Elena pulled up text messages where Derek explicitly discussed the timeline, where he called Jennifer brilliant for hiding the pregnancy, where he talked about Marcus signing away his rights without knowing. "Does this refresh your memory, Mr. Patterson?" Elena asked coldly. Derek stared at his own words on the screen and said nothing. Jennifer testified on day 15. She wore a conservative navy dress and minimal makeup, her hair pulled back. She cried, actual tears streaming down her face, as she explained that she'd been confused, scared, overwhelmed by the pregnancy and the deteriorating marriage. "I made terrible mistakes," she said. "I should have told Marcus the truth, but every time I tried, I couldn't find the words. And then it got too late and I didn't know how to fix it." "Miss Thompson," Elena said during cross-examination, "on August 14th, 2022, you sent a text message to Derek Patterson saying, and I quote, 'His engineering salary set us up perfectly.' Does that sound like someone who couldn't find words or someone who found exactly the right words to describe fraud?" Jennifer didn't answer. "You documented your entire pregnancy on Instagram with captions like, 'Our little secret' and 'almost free.' Does that sound like confusion or calculation?" I was trying to make the best of a bad situation, Jennifer whispered. By stealing $500,000 and your ex-husband's daughter? Paul Reeves objected. Judge Valdez sustained it, but the point was made. I testified on day 16. Robert had prepared me for this. Stay calm, stick to facts, don't let emotion override credibility. But sitting in that witness box, looking out at the courtroom, at Jennifer crying in her defendant's chair, at the jury of 7 women and 5 men who held Lily's future in their hands, I couldn't be purely factual. She let me grieve a child who was alive, I said. I went to therapy for 8 months, believing I'd lost my daughter at 8 weeks gestation. I processed that loss. I made peace with it. And the entire time, Jennifer was pregnant, documenting it, celebrating it with someone else. She didn't just steal money or custody. She stole every moment of that pregnancy from me. Every ultrasound, every kick, every milestone. I'll never get those back. Alina asked me about the divorce proceedings. Did you suspect Miss Thompson was pregnant? Never. She refused in-person meetings claiming PTSD. Everything went through lawyers. She said she needed space to heal. I believed her because I loved her and because I thought we were both grieving the same loss. When did you discover the truth? May 6, 2023. Portland Saturday Market. I saw her across the crowd, visibly 7 or 8 months pregnant with Derek. The math hit me immediately. If she was that far along, she'd been pregnant during our entire divorce. What did you feel in that moment? Like I'd been hit by a train. Then like an idiot. Then like I needed to find my daughter and get her back. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. On September 29, 2023, they returned with their verdict, guilty on all criminal counts. The courtroom erupted. Someone in the back started clapping. Judge Valdez banged her gavel and demanded order. Jennifer put her face in her hands and sobbed. Derek, sitting in the gallery, stood up and walked out. Judge Valdez scheduled sentencing for October 15th. At sentencing, I gave a victim impact statement. Your Honor, I lost 16 months of my daughter's life because of Jennifer Thompson's fraud. I lost the pregnancy, the birth, the first 2 months. I lost the chance to be there when she needed me. Lily is 4 months old now, and I've only known her for 3. Every day I wonder what I missed, what memories I'll never have, what moments were stolen that I can't get back. But this isn't just about me, it's about Lily. She was born into a lie. She was given a different father's last name. She was used as part of a scheme to defraud me of both custody and assets. She deserves better than that. Every child deserves better than that. I'm asking this court to ensure Jennifer understands that children aren't tools for fraud, that fathers have rights, that you can't steal someone's child and call it a mistake. Judge Valdez sentenced Jennifer to 18 months in state prison, 3 years probation, mandatory parenting classes, and mandatory mental health counseling. She was ordered to repay $387,000 of the divorce settlement, half of what she'd taken, plus my attorney fees and investigation costs. Derek settled the civil charges for $125,000 to avoid trial. Most importantly, I was granted full legal and physical custody of Lily. Jennifer would receive supervised visitation only, 4 hours per week, upon her release from Coffee Creek Correctional Facility with a review after 2 years. Jennifer served 14 months with good behavior. She's out now, living with her sister in Vancouver, Washington, seeing Lily every Sunday afternoon at a supervised visitation center. Derek moved to Seattle. I hear he's engaged to someone new. Lily is 19 months old now. She's walking, saying maybe 15 words, and has the biggest smile I've ever seen. She looks like me. Same dark hair, same olive skin, same stubborn chin my mother always teased me about. She loves books, hates avocados, and thinks our cat Morris is the funniest thing in existence. I moved out of that hollow apartment on Lovejoy Street and bought a small house in the Woodstock neighborhood with a backyard and good schools nearby. My parents visit every other weekend. Kate comes up every Sunday with her kids, so Lily has cousins to play with. I hired a nanny, Patricia, who helps during work hours. And I've restructured my job so I can work from home 3 days a week. I'm tired all the time. I haven't dated anyone. I make approximately 7,000 parenting mistakes per day. And I've never been happier. In March 2024, I founded Fathers First PDX, a nonprofit that provides legal resources and support for fathers facing parental alienation and custody fraud. We've helped 230 fathers so far navigate situations like mine. We connect them with attorneys, private investigators, and support groups. We advocate for policy change, and we won a big one. In April 2025, Oregon House Bill 3847 was introduced, requiring mandatory pregnancy disclosure and paternity verification in divorce proceedings involving pregnancy claims or recent births. It's called Lily's Law informally. It passed the House in June and is currently in the Senate. If it passes, Oregon will be the first state to mandate this level of transparency, and other states are watching. I've spoken at family law conferences in Portland, Seattle, and Sacramento. I wrote an op-ed for the New York Times titled "The Child She Stole: Why Fathers' Rights Matter" that was shared over 40,000 times. I've done interviews with the Oregonian, OPB, and even a segment on Good Morning America. But the most important thing I do is raise Lily. Every morning I wake her up at 6:30 and she grins at me with that huge toothy smile and says, "Dada," and reaches her arms up. I make her oatmeal with blueberries. She won't eat it without blueberries. We read The Very Hungry Caterpillar at least 3 times before breakfast. I take her to Laurelhurst Park, the same park where Jennifer did her maternity photo shoot, and we feed the ducks and chase pigeons, and Lily laughs so hard she gets hiccups. I tell her stories about my grandmother, the original Lily, who would have loved her so much. One day, when she's old enough, I'll tell her the whole truth. Not to poison her against her mother, but because she deserves to know her story. She deserves to know that I didn't abandon her, that I didn't know she existed, that the moment I found out about her, I fought with everything I had to bring her home. She deserves to know that she was never unwanted. She was stolen. And she deserves to know that sometimes just isn't about revenge. It's about reclaiming what was taken, rebuilding what was broken, and ensuring the same thing never happens to anyone else. I look at Lily every day, playing with blocks on the living room floor, napping on my chest, reaching for Morris the cat with sticky blueberry hands, and I think about the 16 months I lost. I think about Jennifer crying in that courtroom. I think about Derek moving to Seattle. I think about all the fathers who've called our hotline at Fathers First PDX, desperate and grieving and searching for their children. And then Lily looks up at me and says, "Dada," and hands me a block. And I remember that this, right here, right now, is what matters. Not the money I recovered, though that helped rebuild our life. Not the jail time Jennifer served, though justice demanded accountability. Not the law that might bear Lily's name, though that will protect countless others. What matters is that I'm here. I'm her father, and no one can ever steal that from us again.